Teşekkür ederiz Cengiz Bey. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cengiz.
Introductory speeches lined up for you right now. The first I'd like to introduce, this will be over video, a pre-recorded message by Mr. Talal Abulgazel. He is the honorary president of the International Cooperation Platform. He's also the president of the TAG organization.
I'm delighted to be with you for the 10th year at this important event, the Bosphorus Summit in Istanbul, for the 10th year. It's been an honor for me to serve on this conference as the honorary chair of the conference. This year's conference is, like every year, is scheduled to discuss very important issues on a global level with global participants. And I would like to salute all of you, my colleagues, and the management of this wonderful event, particularly the leader of the project, of the conference, Cengiz. It has been wonderful working with you, and I am sure that this year's event, although online or virtually, will achieve its successful objectives like all the previous events. The subject of this year is a year of uncertainty. The year before, 2020, was the year of crisis. And I remember that as early as 2018, I announced that the year 2020 will be a year of crises, not just one crisis. And that indeed is what it was. And I warned that these crises will have global effects and will be on multi-tracks and multi-problems. So it was not only economic or social or political, but it was a year of turmoil because of the epidemic, which added more a crisis of also economic dimensions, just like the economic crisis itself and the social crisis. Now, this year, I endorse that it will be the year of uncertainty. It's a year of uncertainty because we have two sides on a global level and on an individual level who foresee and try to predict that this year, on one side, some of us in this world, including leaders and politicians and strategists, that this will be a year of solutions because it will help us get out of the depression of 2020 and put us on the road of growth. On the other side, a lot of us believe that this year will be worse than the year before. And I happen to belong to this side. I fully understand when governments and political leaders and even institutions choose to think that this year will be the year of emergence, of solutions for for a better future. I don't think so. I was called a pessimist when I announced that 2020 is going to be the year of crisis. And now you may accuse me of being a pessimist if I say that 2021 will be a worse year. Probably for one exception. There's only one country that can emerge out of this, China, with success. Mainly because of some intrinsic reasons. The size of the country, the size of the population, its self-independence and self-sufficiency, and its proper policies. And I dare to say that we have the evidence in how China reacted and acted out of the epidemic crisis with the least damages, and will be uniquely achieving substantial growth, which can be as high as 6% in its GDP. Whereas all the countries of the world, except a few, and I can name a couple of them, who will be able to achieve positive growth, even if it was for 2 or 3%. And that includes, from our region, the countries of Egypt, which follows China in the rate of growth, as an exception to the rest of the world, and possibly Turkey. I want to say that uncertainty, let's at this point describe what is meant by uncertainty and the year of or age of uncertainty. Indeed, we have uncertainties at many levels. One is Corona, this epidemic. And as early as its start last year, I had the courage to say, don't be misled. We're going to live with this crisis, the epidemic, this health crisis, for at least 4 years. And again, I was a subject of great attack as the famous pessimist. Very, very late did even the World Organization, WHO, came to announce that we will live with this for 5 years. And surprisingly, only last week, an announcement from the World Health Organization predicted that we will have to live with this for a long time or forever. That is one uncertainty, because nobody owns the truth, and I don't claim that I do. Another uncertainty is about the economic future of the world. And the uncertainty there is because we cannot, and nobody can answer the question, where will the conflict, and I dare to call it conflict, between China and the US lead us. Is it going to be resolved peacefully and in a way that can satisfy at least the basic demands of both sides and help us in having a world with order and leadership? We are living in a world where there is no order. It's an orderless world. There is no single power that can lead the global community. And there are no global rules that are acceptable to all the community, humanity, and can provide fair and equitable principles for the human of relations, political, social, and economic between communities in this world. And again here, I am willing to claim, and I know that I will be accused of being pessimist again, that unfortunately this conflict will have to end only after an unfortunate military conflict between the two superpowers, the US and China. Because the demands for both sides, or on both sides, against the other side, are unacceptable and unreasonable by the consideration of the other side. So we will be heading into a sort of war, obviously unlike the previous World War I and World War II, because these two countries particularly, the US and China, are impossible to conquer. Nobody can dream of having success and overcoming the other. China, with its landscape, with its military power, with its natural resources, which is as a huge island with self-sufficiency, is invincible. The US similarly is invincible. Nobody in his own mind can believe that any country or any group of countries can attack and overcome the USA. Therefore, the only possible, I think, solution is for the two countries to have a virtual, probably a virtual war, and that forces them to sit together to stop this war and to negotiate an agreement about the governance of the world and coming up with a new world order and a new world leadership, possibly more than polar, multipolar leadership. But that will take time to develop and agree, because such important global agreements between such great superpowers and their allies will take a long negotiating time, which I cannot predict when it will be resolved. Accordingly, we have this serious crisis. Another uncertainty is about the rule of law in countries, all countries of the world. I personally contrary to what the majority of people believe, see a major crisis in governing and political orders in the world. We have to believe that what is happening in many countries, particularly in our region as a start, but as you can see, it's spreading all over the world, is the crisis of democracy. It has been the great hope and dream during the first half of the last century, and then started the decline, and the governments of the world, without any exception, are under a revolution, a new kind of revolution called popularism. Populist movements where the people are claiming that we are the source of power. And that, in fact, is very true even in a great country like a great democracy like the US. The first statement in the Constitution says that we, the people, decide. And one of the decisions is to establish a parliamentary system. But who decided it? We, the people. Therefore, we, the people, can change that decision because we are the source of decisions, all decisions, and we can overrule our legitimately elected leaders. So popularism is a major crisis that is expected to hit every country in the world. It is not just opposition or a revolution or internal conflicts that we are seeing in dozens of countries who are changing. And as I claimed this 2 years ago, I claimed that the world will, the economy of the world, the democracies of the world will face a great challenge under this crisis. And evidently, everybody heard President Biden announced last week that democracy is under attack. And although I disagree with all modesty, with the reason he gave that this attack on democracy is from enemy countries. It is not. It's an internal movement, and it is a revolt against the failure of democracy. So we need either to develop our democracy system or accept the rule of the people. Unfortunately, when we talk about the rule of the people, we have a problem because we don't know yet how will the people rule, because there is no common leadership in the countries. It is a multiple kind of conflicts, but it's all because the people believe that the democratic system has to be amended, has to be developed. There are many other crises in this world that are, and because of the time limitation, and I already feel that I have bored you enough, this is a year of uncertainty. And it is wise to realize that as a fact. And from my point of view, my perspective, not to settle in the good feeling and the comfort which some certain circles in the world tell you this is going to be a great year. It is not. It's going to be the year of beginning of an uncertainty age in more than one respect, and therefore it is wise to start looking at these uncertainties and developing plans on how to address the issues. If it happens to, you are already protecting yourself. If it doesn't, we're all happier and we all prefer not to have any serious major conflicts in the world. I hope that this meeting will contribute to better understanding of the year 2021, which I call the starting year of an age and not a year. When I spoke about 220, I said it's a year of crisis. But now I'm talking about an age of uncertainty. And that will require a lot of research, a lot of work, a lot of thinking, a lot of joint action to try to address these uncertainties and come up with a new world order and a new global leadership to take over our destiny in the future. Thank you very much for listening. I say this with humility because I know that all of you are more knowledgeable than me. And just adding or reiterating what Winston Churchill once said, the greatest lesson in life is to realize that idiots are sometimes right. Thank you.
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, members of ICP, ladies and gentlemen. After this heavily pessimistic speech on a Monday morning like this, I hope, I know there are not much to say on the optimistic side, but I will try to be a little lighter than our honorary chairman. On behalf of ICP, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to welcome each of you to our enchanting city of Istanbul. Some of our guests are here with us in person and some through the virtual attendance, as you know. Well, the season of uncertainty. The world has caught off guard. I am being echoed or? Okay. It's not part of being pessimistic, but just the echo. The world was caught off guard, ladies and gentlemen. The worst part is that this virus, which has been threatening humanity for more than a year, is still taking lives every day. Millions of cases all around the globe, hundreds of thousands, even millions perished. It is not wrong to say that the COVID-19 has upset every balance of mankind. Besides the health system, the very social, political, and economic structure are being disturbed, including industry, trade, tourism, logistics, retail, education, art, are all being affected. Since the first quarter of 2020 last year, the entire world was forced into lockdown and still struggling with it. Social relations are mostly based on different forms of internet now, because it is the only possibility of communication. Global trade is thriving only through the virtual environment. Unemployment is not an economic problem anymore. It has become a social problem. For most people, family finance ceased to be manageable. Still, people of the world are trying to protect the health of their families as well as continuing to earn their livelihood. In some countries, it has become a luxury to receive adequate health services. Business and pleasure travel had become postponed for months at a time. The loss of consumer and service market cannot be calculated anymore. For the mankind, for each of us. The new concept of this great reset is becoming a reality in most of the summits like ours. So new approaches and designs are being created for the new ways of life. Staying home developed into working from home. Now it is a real alternative to office life, to working from the office. Expectations, even demands from health services are ever changing due to these unusual conditions. All sectors are gearing to satisfy the changing demands of the consumer market because there is no other way they can survive. Dear members, considering these and many other factors, our main theme this year is very becoming to our world today. Our discussions during the next 2 days will highlight some of the possible developments and the measures to be taken towards them. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me express my sincere gratitude to our distinguished speakers, panelists, and to our members who came to Istanbul or preferred virtual participation from all over the world. Finally, I would like to thank everybody who have helped to make this summit possible. Thank you very much for your attention.
Üreticiden tüketiciye, yatırımcıdan tedarikçiye,
So from supplier to consumer, we do have a certain impact, despite the fact that we are trying to avoid, as a result of our interventions, it is going to become the whole problem, and we will clearly see it during the pandemic time. Our main objective during the summit, we will try to present different perceptions in business life, and we will discuss our future to provide some certain solutions. So we will try to create an ecosystem. If we can create this ecosystem, it is going to give us a very good reaction, and we can overcome the situations. Distinguished guests, with an impact of pandemic, it is going to be a deep transformation, and we will feel its impact. And of course, our regionalization impact will have a certain impact. And of course, we have seen it in the Asian agreement. Asian countries, 15 countries, 2.2 million population and 24.8 trillion of GDP has had the 30% of the global budget. And what in our main hub of the relations, and clearly seen this, and our new geography needs to speed up, and also global consumer chains shift should be followed very closely. In this insignificant times and approaches, the best way is to change our perception. And both our goods and also prices, we are negotiating these facts. 223 countries are owning and also raising our flag. And our, of course, export and import markets should be diversified, and we need to increase our compatibility, and we need to bring forth the products which are crucial, because Turkish exporters do have big targets, and big targets bringing big responsibilities. I'm mentioning it every platform. Our biggest objective is having a surplus in our export activities, and we would like to increase the diversity in our products, and we would like to focus on products. And thanks to God, by 2020, despite the impact of pandemic, we were over our targets. And with our whole geography, hopefully, we will bring it further. Distinguished guests, our culture which has structured civilization over civilization, and our reciprocal commercial relationship should be enhanced and empowered with win-win strategy, and we are working together hand in hand, hope that we will go further and it will bring us further. And international organization, our international organization members, and of course, our guests, we would like to express our gratitude to each and all of you. Ismail Bey, thank you very much.
The introductory speeches, I'd now like to introduce the European Union Commissioner for Migration, Mr. Dimitri Avramopoulos.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, it is good to be back addressing you at this summit meeting, though in somewhat unusual circumstances. We all know that the world has been in a state of uncertainty for a very long time. The global media and everyday life remind us of these facts days and night. So we may ask, what else is new? I do not intend here to repeat the obvious events and issues that trouble the world at present. What I do intend to do right here and now, in the virtual surroundings of the 11th Bosphorus Summit, for which, of course, I'm grateful, is to suggest ways of handling this uncertainty. We cannot eliminate uncertainty, but what we can do is negotiate the treacherous rocks of uncertainty and in the process reduce the amount of conflict and potential political and economic conflicts in the world. In short, what we perceive as weakness can be turned into new and auspicious opportunities. After the Second World War, people felt that at last the world has come to its senses, that the progress of science and technologies would soon put an end to war, poverty, and disease. It was a romantic view, but history has a way of dispelling romantic views of the world. Instead, wars proliferated and social and economic crises intensified. Now, in the year 2021, we are all grappling with such intractable problems as uncontrolled migration, economic imbalances, and of course, most of all, the COVID-19 pandemic, which has overturned many of our previous comfortable assumptions. When I addressed this gathering in the year 2017, the problems of terrorism and uncontrolled migration dominated the global news cycle. At that time, I argued in favor of multilateral cooperation and dialogue to provide a common front in tackling these global threats. Now, the preoccupation has shifted dramatically. The world's #1 problem for a year now has been, as we all know, the COVID-19 pandemic. But the basic remedy has not changed. That remedy can only be multilateral cooperation and dialogue. This new virus is a threat to humanity, just as serious as a world war, and we are still a long way from overcoming it. But I'm not a doctor, and so I will leave it at that. Yet, when the coronavirus is finally beaten by man or nature, as we have no doubt that it essentially will be, we will have other chronic issues to face. One of these issues is global and regional stability and security. And it is fitting that we examine it here in the highly important East Mediterranean region in the context of the Bosphorus summit. As a Greek, I'm uncomfortably aware of the current dispute between Greece and Turkey over sovereign rights in the Aegean Sea and spheres of maritime influence in the wider region. But my task is not to reinvent wheel. The guide to our actions should be international law. However, I must say this. Whenever in the past I have met and talked with the President of Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, and there have been many such occasions, the talk has always been cordial, sincere, and trustworthy. It's not necessary to agree in order to have differing points of view. The present exploratory talks between Greece and Turkey on the outstanding differences have so far confirmed this view. And they must continue. We have to exhaust all means in order to continue. But you may well ask, are we to be a mere debating society? Some of us here today are in countries directly affected by geopolitical instability and ongoing conflict. They demand action, not just empty rhetoric. I'm talking about our citizens. I personally was faced with precisely these challenges during my 5 years as European Commissioner for Migration. I had to coordinate a Europe-wide response to an unprecedented wave of migration from troubled spots in the Middle East and Africa. I had to come up with actions, not just words. We secured the adoption of the joint EU-Turkey statement on migration. That agreement produced results. Believe me, it was not easy, but I learned a great deal from this experience. And this brings me back to the pandemic. The coronavirus is in effect a new terrorism with millions of victims so far. But the coronavirus is not political. COVID is not Greek, Turkish, Chinese, or American challenge. It does not recognize borders or maritime zones. It is a truly human challenge. But unlike a war, it does not divide humanity. it enhances cooperation, especially between neighboring countries. Of course, the old reflexes remain, but so far the level of global cooperation we have seen is highly encouraging, although it came a bit late. It took some time, but it works. And might it be the model for future bridge building on other difficult political issues in the future? It's a question. Now I would like to say a few words about the international security order. I have had experience in this field too as foreign minister and defense minister of my country. And my experience has taught me this, that while it may not be possible to actually solve many serious problems, good faith and respect on the part of the opposing parties goes a long way to making them less toxic. Let's go back a bit in history. In the year 1930, the Greek Prime Minister Eleftherios Venizelos, a real leader, famously signed a treaty of peace and cooperation with Kemal Ataturk. How was that possible? Just 8 years after a disastrous war between the two countries. The answer is that both Venizelos and Ataturk believed it to be possible and personally acted on their belief. It was as simple as that, and it worked. The English saying, where there is a will, there is a way, is very, very true. But do we have the will? For my part, when I was foreign minister of Greece, in the year 2012 and the year 2013, I actively promoted the continuation of exploratory Greek-Turkish meetings to resolve tensions. I made sure to cultivate cordial relations with the Turkish foreign minister at that time, my friend Mr. Davutoglu. The talks I had with Mr. Davutoglu were confidential in content, as they should be, and we kept the climate peaceful. I consider those meetings a success because the will was there. There is good and capable leadership on both sides today. Today, it is good that we have talented and competent leadership on both sides. It remains for us to use those leadership talents to build, not to allow confrontation. Dozens of prime ministers have come and gone in Greece and Turkey since 1930, but only a very few have had the courage, strength, and goodwill to make a real difference in promoting cooperation and honest dealing between the two countries. Let me make myself clear at this point. I'm not here at the summit just to further my own political career. I'm here to contribute to the building of bridges. In the past year, the world has been struggling through a deadly pandemic. Economies have been ravaged, people are suffering, and the voice of extremism and nationalism are becoming louder and more dangerous. We can no longer afford to accept the status quo. The European Union needs to be and move faster. The recent problems which the European Commission had with the COVID vaccinations from the beginning was to all of us a warning signal. Vaccination and nationalism is not an option. Solidarity and responsibility remain pillars of the European project. Both were challenged and questioned by the economic and migration crisis, and now by the pandemic. Without such principles, Europe does not have a future. Europe cannot exist. The great lesson of history is that nothing should ever be taken for granted. The past 20 or so years, with their terrorism incidents, uncontrolled migration, technological changes, and now this pandemic should open our eyes and minds. That is why summits like this, the 11th Bosphorus Summit, are vital. We cannot eliminate conflict and suffering overnight, and we know that we have to be realistic. But if enough small steps are made, we can say that the world eventually will not be a better place, marginally better, perhaps, but better. As I said in the beginning, uncertainty may be interpreted as weakness. And it is. But if we handle it properly and responsibly, through mutual respectful diplomacy and the willingness to listen to one another, we can transform uncertainty into new opportunity for coming generations who deserve to inherit a better, more open and stable world. Thank you very much for your attention.
Mr. Commissioner, thank you very much. Well, that rounds up our list of introductory speakers. Thank you to all of them.